I'm Christine Maggs and I'm just at the MASTS conference. I'm representing JNCC as Chief Scientist and the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the organisation. The JNCC's main roles are advising government, not just the UK's government but the devolved administrations, and we also advise the overseas territories on matters, anything to do really with nature conservation very broadly, so international obligations, conventions, and then national matters such as designation of particular species and so on. Mostly JNCC works with partners to do the practical work because we don't have actual physical resources of our own. Our resources are our human capital and really our computing skills. But we work with partners who have laboratories, ships, and exciting stuff like at National Oceanography Centre in Southampton. And our staff get invited out on cruises and to do some of the practical work with our partners. Most years, everybody gets out to do at least one piece of work outside. Our main work in marine is working towards the OSPAR, the Oslo and Paris Convention, and now the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. There's also quite a lot of marine work related to things like the Convention on Biological Diversity, because 2020 is fast approaching and the new targets have to be set. Sustainable Development Goals in the marine, we're working on that too. And we have a big interest in birds, flyways, wetlands, Ramsar, and birds are very popular, as everybody knows. They've got, I was going to say fur and eyes, they've got feathers and eyes, and our work with the ornithology groups such as the British Trust for Ornithology and the RSPB is very important. In order to preserve and designate areas of marine conservation, such as marine protected areas, you've got to know what's actually on the bottom. So the remote sensing methods and using things like autonomous underwater vehicles with our partners, those help us to get information about the seabed, which we then put into models and decide where important habitats live, map them out and make them available to our customers, governments and so on to help with things like planning and designations. There are a lot of big challenges on the horizon at the moment. There's an enormous amount of work that has resulted from EU exit. We are involved, like DEFRA, in trying to prepare for day one readiness. One of our interesting areas is CITES, the licenses for importing of endangered wildlife products. That's going to be a big day one issue, and the government is well aware of that. There are many other things. We still have to carry on reporting under the Habitats Directive, but we also need to prepare for what comes next. And one of the important things there actually is that OSPAR is not an EU organisation. OSPAR is actually independent of the EU. The EU is a member, so we can continue to work within the OSPAR framework. The enormous changes that are going on the planet at the moment are something that we work closely to monitor. We work on indicators for the UK's biodiversity, and those indicators tell important stories. We're very much aware of the climate change and the effects that that's having on species and habitats, the need to not look just at protected areas but at the areas between and outside protected areas. These are all foci for the future. We work in the JNCC in partnership with a lot of different organisations across the DEFRA group and beyond it in the devolved administrations. And part of the work that we do with our partners is actually aimed at the overseas territories. And a good example of this is the Blue Belt programme, which will preserve and enhance the marine ecosystems of the overseas territories, and that work can't be done without the partners such as CFAS. So we're in an advisory group on some of it, and we're also working with CFAS on the Commonwealth Litter programme, which is quite a large programme that will reduce the amount of plastic waste going into the seas of the overseas territories and indeed the Commonwealth more generally. So that's a big push at the moment to drive against marine plastic waste.